Welcome into the Bunker Podcast. Today, I want to talk to you guys about silver. I want to talk about Bitcoin, Ethereum, gold miners, my favorite silver miners. I want to talk about a couple top Nasdaq and tech stocks to look at. I want to talk about the Nasdaq. I want to compare all of these, and I want to tell you how I feel about all of those heading into next week. Okay, we're going to look at the charts. We're going to dive into that. But first, I wanted to make sure that, just in case you're new to this channel, that you understand that the reason I do these videos is to prepare people, to make sure that people are doing the right things to protect themselves and their family in terms of financially, and also in terms of, just physically, mentally, spiritually, as well as, being able to provide, nutrition for yourself and for your family. And so we are coming into hard times. I think that within the next, it's a big time frame, but I think it progressively will get a little bit worse in terms of food for the next 2 to about 12 months. We will see more and more anomalies happening. And in terms of supply chain, in terms of the markets, in terms of, being able to source food. And there's just so many factors happening. I can't really even cover all of them. And maybe there's a time where I can just come through and cover every single one of these issues. And if you want me to do that, if you want me to come in and give you every single piece of the doom and gloom, which I can do. I just sometimes avoid it because I think it might be too much for people to handle. I think the main thing that people need to do is they need to look into just, but if you want me to do that, like the video, comment down below what items you want me to cover, things like that, so that I can, better serve your needs. That's why I'm here. So anyway, growing your own food, that's another thing. You can easily get grow bags on Amazon. You can pop in a potato that you bought at the store that's older and has those little eyes popping out. Pop that in, put some soil in there with the grow bag, and you can grow potatoes that way. That's just an easy way to do it. There are other ways. Obviously, get as many storable foods as you can: spaghetti, quinoa, rice, oats, wheat berries, peanut butter, tomato sauce, meats you can put in the freezer, jarred, any jar food, any canned food, tuna, beans, peas. These are just some of the things you can start to stack up on your own. But without further ado, let's try to dive into the charts here. And I wanted to start with silver. And the reason I wanted to start with silver is because silver, I think, is probably the most undervalued asset on the planet. That's just personally what I think. I think it is one of the most manipulated assets on the planet. And so why shouldn't we be buying something that has been manipulated so hard that eventually it will break free, especially in the crazy times ahead, because people will sort of not know what to do. And when they don't know what to do, they revert back to things that they don't, are innate within us, which is God's money, gold and silver, 4,000 years, things that, to go to basically without even knowing it now, maybe. But looking at the chart, we've basically been rejected at this trend line many different times. Okay. So 1, 2, basically 3, 4, 5. We broke above it on the 6th, and now we tested this outside line here, and now we are breaking free of that line. This is the daily chart. If we look at it on the weekly chart, which obviously I love to do, I love to look at long-term time frames. I think it helps put things in perspective. And what I see is a giant cup and handle that is ready to break. And this is kind of the trend line that I see. It's kind of the same trend line here, actually. And if we break this, we're breaking a trend line that has been in place since this, okay? And we didn't know that that was a trend line until we came up and bam, hit it there, hit it. But now if we actually are able to break free, this is the targets that I'm looking at for silver on a bigger time frame. Okay, 77.85 is the minimum target for me personally, where I will sell some of the physical silver that I've accumulated over the past couple of years. I also look at this top level as definitely reachable, which is 182. I think that in a short squeeze scenario where things are out of control, I think that this is where we'll break the system. And the system is derivatives, okay? So silver is manipulated with derivatives 100 to 1 or more, possibly 300 to 1 in some cases. Which means that for every ounce of physical silver, there are 100 to 300 paper derivative contracts that represent a physical ounce of silver, but it is a fractional reserve system. So when the derivative system breaks, when markets start to crash and real physical goods are needed in the economy, the derivatives break and that money flushes out of the system and rushes to real physical things. And when that happens and you cannot manipulate the price of silver anymore with a fake derivative paper price, that will cause a massive short squeeze like we have never seen before in silver, especially in today's day and age when we have $1 quadrillion worth of derivatives and we have trillions of dollars that have been printed just in the past year. When they rush into a physical item like silver, that's when you will see massive gains happen very quickly. And usually gold and silver do not rally until the end of the craziness. So the reason that we haven't seen gold and silver rally is because we are not at the end yet. Okay, so what will usually happen and what usually tends to happen is that we have a commodity bull, okay, like we're having now, and then we will have the gold and silver. Gold will run, and then silver will actually run after gold. So it'll usually be commodities will run, okay, for a while, could be multiple years. Okay, so the real gold and silver move might not actually come for another year or two. It just depends when this actually starts to hit in a real way. And so what will happen is a commodity bull, then a gold bull, or I should say a gold, spike, then silver will run last, okay? And silver will run the most. So commodities will run a lot, gold will run a decent amount, but it's a huge asset, so it's harder to run. And then we will have the run to silver, which will be like none other that you've ever seen. And I believe we will see a gold to silver ratio of around, in this particular event that is a 2,000 year plus event in terms of everything that's happening in the world, I do believe we can get to a 10-to-1 ratio, or even maybe an 8-to-1. Some people have prophesized a 1-to-1, which is insane. But yes, 10-to-1. If we get a $3,000 gold, which I think we can get, I expect to see a $300 silver in that spike peak. But like I said, just as a protective, scenario for myself, I would like to see the $75 to $100 silver is where I will, maybe I'll just cash out my silver miners. And I guess I can cover those now. My favorite silver miner would be this one, and I apologize for all the lines, but it would be First Majestic Silver. And if we look at it on the weekly, it's similar to physical silver in terms of the actual amount of derivatives and things that take place with First Majestic, and also the manipulation that happens with First Majestic. And so what you have to realize is that it is also manipulated because there are so many derivatives and shorts taken out on it. it has been tamped down a lot. And we know that they are a bigger and better company than they were back in these days. Okay, they've had many assets that they've acquired since then. You know, they have a great physical bullion, you know, market that they sell just separately from this. And again, if we look at the moving averages, and I should have done this with silver, we can see on the weekly, the moving averages are very close here still. Okay, so we are not in a territory of a wide like we were back here. And the same with the daily. Okay, same with the daily. We are very skinny here, and we are crossing. We're starting to have these bullish crosses. Okay, the 200, which used to be on the top, is now making its way to the bottom of these ranges. And so, like I said, wide. Remember, wide is when you sell, skinny is when you accumulate. Okay, so this is a perfect time to accumulate silver. It's a perfect time to accumulate, you know, First Majestic silver, which we are in like a falling wedge here. So if we look at this as like a falling wedge that we are just breaking free of now. Okay, and when we do break free, I do expect major things. I expect at least a double from here. If we can get to those crazy levels of silver price, like $100 to $200 to $300, you could see life-changing wealth from a silver miner like this. I also say that none of this is what financial advice is, just stuff that I personally do. It's none of the stuff that you need to do. You know, all the decisions are up to you or your financial advisor. So when we do see the run to silver and we do see the run to these miners, you're going to see major moves. Another one, which is, sorry, this is the wrong, which is GDX. GDX is looking really good right now. We are breaking out on the daily, and we have just been in this solid uptrend. This is actually just an index of gold miners. And so in this, I look for at least a double to around $68, which is not exactly a double. You can see these are separate charts. The one is from just this, and then the one is from sort of the larger weekly that we can look at here when we were all the way back here in 2011. And honestly, we should be running a lot higher here, because even if gold stays at these prices, we are still very undervalued in comparison to this. Rafi Farber actually did an interesting video on Arcadia Economics recently that was had the gold miner to gold ratio, and it was looking like it was just breaking out, like we were just on the verge of breaking out. So I think that that's something to look at as well. Let's take a look at some cryptos, you know, so you guys kind of know what I like in terms of gold, silver, gold miners, and silver miners. I also like Endeavor Silver and Blue Lagoon Resources as a small cap sort of altcoin for all you crypto lovers for the gold and silver miner sector. In terms of this bad boy, Bitcoin, you know, this is interesting to say the least, this spot that we're in. I would say that it almost looks like we're catching some nice support here. And you can see this was resistance. We made it support here. We sort of made it resistance here. And then now we went above it, and now we're testing back. And so that is what we want to see. You know, a couple of things I'm concerned with is basically that we got rejected here at the 200 and at this resistance level. So it's definitely possible that we come down and we're sort of in this range. We obviously have a break above, you know, maybe all-time highs, a break below, you know, maybe 20K. So there's multiple scenarios here that we could be looking at for Bitcoin. I did want to see if we can look at some indicators, just like the MACD. If we can look at that potentially. The MACD has crossed for one of the first times in a long time. And then on the weekly, we also had a cross here, and we actually were, sort of not catching support at these levels. We crossed here. We do not like that. You don't want to see that. We haven't crossed since back here before the COVID crash. We crossed previously also here for this crash. So there's been many of these crosses that have then resulted in crashes, only really a few actually, on the weekly time frame. So, I think this is kind of where have my eyes is the 200, because usually when we have these crosses, we inevitably come down to the 200-day moving average. So keep an eye on that. Also take a look at ETH. And one thing that I wanted to highlight was actually on the monthly. To me, on the monthly, it almost looks like, there was this line that I remember people talking about. And you can kind of see this line here that we're highlighting. And it really was catching support, and it was just a steady uptrend. We caught support here on this July crash. We crashed below it, and now we're actually making it resistance 3 months in a row. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. And then on the monthly, we also have this candle, which to me, it's obviously the beginning of the month, so we can't really say what this will look like. But it looks like to me, we have strong resistance at around 3,600. Even on this monthly candle here and on this monthly candle here, we sort of have this resistance. So just keep that in mind. I do think that, ETH still has some downside room here. So again, there's many support levels below it. This is just one that I had looked at, is like around that level, and on the monthly around 1,000. I've always said like, yeah, $1,000 ETH would be the bottom, with 20K Bitcoin. I know that sounds bearish to some people, and I understand that, like, there's a bunch of ETH being burned. There's, over 2 million ETH have been burned. We have the reduction in issuance with the merge. We have people maybe locking up more ETH than ever before with staked ETH. So the supply is not there, but you have to realize that the market makers are really the people that matter, regardless of what the supply is, I think, in these crypto markets. And so the people who make these markets are the people who move the markets, and really they play more than any other sector. They play off of the charts. So when you're looking at the charts, you can definitely determine a little bit more. We are just now actually experiencing we're almost there. Well, did we cross already on that actually? So we crossed on Bitcoin here. And to me, it doesn't look like we crossed yet. No, we haven't. Okay. So we still haven't crossed, and we're coming into support here on the weekly. So it's good that we're holding that. I always said a really key level is 3158, and that is where we came down to 3150, 3160. That's always kind of been my favorite level for ETH to trade around. So if we can catch support there, I do think we can have another leg up potentially. So keep an eye out for that. And it's hard to have an opinion on ETH at this level here. It kind of has to show us which direction it wants to go. This also got rejected off of the 200. I did say this in a previous video up here. I said this is the top. And right now it doesn't look good on the daily to me, because we're forming this flat bottom. So sometimes flat bottoms can turn out to be dumps. And so we could come back to test sort of this mid-level of this wedge, this bear market pennant, possibly test, we broke above, now we come back and sort of test these levels around 2,800. That's something that I would definitely look at there. And let's take a look at Apple. Okay. Apple got rejected here. and at this trend line that we have formed here. And it doesn't look great, but at the same time, we are coming back into support. We're coming back into this support here, and we're also coming back into the moving averages there. And again, we're not wide. Okay, so on the daily, we are not wide like we were up here. Now, on the weekly, we definitely are wide. I already know. The weekly is something to behold in terms of just how wide we really are and how we haven't adjusted. And so again, this is not a time where you would want to accumulate Apple. You might not want to risk selling it because it's a sort of a safe haven. I think people are running to these, basically Apple's like a utility nowadays. So people are running to it because they know that everyone has Apple phones. And so everyone's going to continue to use Apple and need Apple, just like a utility, just like a consumer staple, right? Like, toothpaste or just different things that you would need in your life is basically called consumer staples. So this almost could be considered that, and it's coming back into like a support range here. Let's take a look at it on the monthly, and we can see that, again, very wide on the monthly. Obviously pretty insane to look back at it. And nothing really to see. I mean, I would say we're sort of flattening out here on the monthly, which is interesting. This just shows you how much room we have to go to the bottom. I mean, obviously on the 200 monthly, like nothing would ever reach probably that low, obviously, but we have support down here on the monthly 20 SMA, which is sort of around where I have my put target, around like 135 to 140 here, more like 137. If we take a look at Tesla, the bubble stock, meme stock, the original meme stock, really, and the Ponzi scheme that Elon Musk continues to pump by doing crazy things like buying pieces of Twitter, joining the board, buying crypto, many different gimmicks that he has pulled over the years to pull people into this stock. And I believe he dumped the top. So, good luck getting above that top. We formed a pretty solid resistance here. So I wouldn't look into, obviously, buying. None of this is financial advice. But on the daily, we're not as wide, obviously, as we were over here. And so let's look at it on actually the hourly, because I did want to say there's one thing that I've learned in the past, couple even like weeks and months of looking at charts, is actually when you want to buy is when you see on the hourly chart, when you see a divergence from the so basically when you want to sell is when you see a divergence away from the 20 SMA on the hourly, like this. Okay, so see how we came way above the 20 SMA here? We just shot above it, right? And look how far above the SMA we are, and that was the sell. And then when we break, you can see the 20 then goes to the bottom. Okay, and usually we have a flip, and when you get a full flip, but you also get a major divergence on the bottom, so you get a huge divergence from the bottom of the 20 SMA hourly. From the bottom of the 20 SMA hourly, that's when you buy. And then ideally you would want to come up and you would want to, come above the 200. You would want to test, and then you would maybe take another trade, but you would basically take the trade up until you hit that 200 again. So again, divergence from the 20, bam, we shot up, and then we flipped bullish again here with the 20 on the top. And then bam, we had a divergence from the 20. That was when you sold. And so that's actually how, like, you could technically day trade some of these stocks. I wouldn't say it's a good time to do that, but I am learning. And in the future, you know, in a future bull market, potentially for crypto, I would really love to sort of use this hourly knowledge to take a look at possibly doing some trading. I think that'd be really fun. And, you know, maybe start with like a small amount. Maybe you use, you know, DYDX, you know, exchange or something like that. But I think on crypto, actually, it works even better. Or just because people love to trade it. So it's like so obvious. But I was looking at ETH and you can see like we diverge from the 20 here, you buy it. But now we're sort of flattening out on the hourly. But you can see divergence from the top, divergence from the top, divergence from the bottom. You know, we bottomed. And then so you can kind of see like where these bottoms sort of come from, these divergences from the bottoms, and then divergences from the tops. Even if we look at like the very top, let's see what we can find here on ETH. You know, it was really solid here. There was no real big trades to be taken. This was sort of just like a hodl train. You can see that we did diverge pretty hard here. You know, we could see some selling. But there really was never like, we saw this, you know, was a buy because it was diverging from the bottom. But we kind of just traded. This was, I guess, the biggest divergence we could get. And then again, a little bit of a divergence, and then I guess a little bit of a divergence. And then that was the top. And, you know, we saw major selling come in there. And so that's sort of where we saw this topping. But as you can see, look at where the buy came in when we really diverged from this 20. And then we can see when the selling came in was when we really sort of diverged here from the top of the 20 SMA. So again, just a couple things to look at. Lastly, we'll take a look at the Nasdaq. This doesn't look good. We got rejected here. We are also in the last death cross, the final death cross of the 100 and the 200 that we're having. We also have a bullish cross at the same time, which is interesting. So maybe we get caught in this middle. But yeah, it doesn't look great. We did have this trend line that we drew. It didn't actually reach all the way up to that, you know, but it did reach to the 200 and got rejected. The last time, I mean, we really look at the 200 day. I mean, when's the last time you saw us get rejected from the 200? I mean, even here, I guess you could say maybe we got rejected there and then bam, and kind of faked us out. But it's hard to really, you know, say that there was a time. Maybe even if we go back to the bubble, we can see the 2000 bubble just to see if we can get a clearer picture of if we did get. I mean, I assume we did. It's funny because this to me actually sort of looks similar. You know, this is kind of where the top happened, and then we did have this complacency leg, but we got rejected. We didn't have this flip already. But yeah, we did get rejected here by the 20 SMA. We crashed. And then I guess you could say these were sort of the complacency legs where we got rejected at the 200. But again, the 200 was never really on the top until there. So definitely interesting because I think that those are like similar. I want to look at it again actually because but yeah, just look how crazy it's gotten. I mean, if you look at the fact that you know, this back here was a bubble is just insane. But yeah, if we look at this again, sort of on the weekly, we're just getting this bearish cross as well that we're getting on Ethereum. To me, the Nasdaq looks very similar to Ethereum as well as to Bitcoin in terms of the moving averages, in terms of this sort of complacency rally. Where we did put in a gravestone doji here at the top on the weekly. And so none of these really look great to me, obviously. And so, again, hopefully you guys got something out of the video. We can see, like I said, the 200 actually is almost already on the top, which is interesting. And getting rejected from that is a pretty big deal. That usually doesn't happen. So again, hopefully you guys got something out of the video. hopefully, you're, preparing. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Just comment below, and, I can try to help you out. And, yeah, so other than that, stay safe and have a great rest of your weekend.